Today we're talking about the Cloud Dragon tattoo design. Welcome back. You might recognize this design from the Using Digital Art video, but in this video we'll unpack everything that went into making this one design. So let's get started, and to make sure you don't miss a video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Our client would like a huge dragon wrapping around their arm with the head ending up on the chest. And to get some inspiration, I'm looking at some of my favorite dragon artworks from online museums. And since the dragon has been a theme in artwork for about 1,000 years, there's been a lot of ways that artists have depicted the dragon. So I'm doing what I always do when researching from history, and that's picking out the areas that I like and are consistent across the decades. And I really like the line work and the bolding and the gray background in this image. This dragon in particular ended up being a huge inspiration for the dragon we're doing today. Our client has also done a lot of research as well, and they have some very specific ideas for their tattoo. So we'll keep these images here to reference them as we go. And after a lot of research, we're ready to start building out a rough composition. And since I'm freehanding this dragon, I'm starting things out with my first light composition pass, which is pretty much how I'd start things off if I was sketching on paper. The idea here is to get everything sketched in, including the basic shape of the chest panel as well. Now we go in with our second outline layer, which is a slightly darker definition pass. And here, we add weight to certain lines. In total, I end up doing 5 layers of outlines for this piece. 6 actually, if you include the line bolding. And this might seem a bit excessive, but each time you do a layer, you can make slightly better choices. And now we go in with our third outline layer. I just lower the opacity of the previous layer and start sketching right on top. But this layer is a bit different. I'm becoming more confident and starting to push some of those shapes. The eyes here get a lot more intense. And yeah, I'm just trying to make better choices as I move through each layer. Now, I've worked with artists who can go straight to the final outline without having to do all the sketching, but I've never been that artist. I need to really build up a structure of a piece before committing to my line work. But I've seen people nail this kind of thing off rip. This is my fourth outline layer, which is my darkest sketch layer. And even though this layer looks very similar to the last, I'm making different choices with the eyes, teeth, and whiskers of the dragon. And it's important that you research the many rules and superstitions surrounding the dragon. One rule is that you should never tattoo just the head of the dragon on your body. But like I mentioned earlier, this dragon head is part of a much larger tattoo, and the plan is to design the entire dragon body as well as the head. And after all that sketching, we're finally ready to go in with our final outline. And this is where we get our first look at the glorious line smoothing. Here I'm using Photoshop, but I find the line smoothing is really good in Procreate as well. But this first clean outline always looks a bit funny to me and makes my design look a bit like a Simpsons character. The best thing to make this look professional is to change up the line weight. Now normally I would make a lot of really thin interior lines and really thick outside lines, but I'm drawing some inspiration from one of the dragons in our research, and instead of bolding all the outside lines, I'm bolding the parts of the dragon that are the most forward, like the nose, the mustache, and the teeth. And this is not normally how I would bold things, but it's nice to try something new. And here I can change up the thicknesses of the lines I made as well. Alright, so let's get into some shading. First, I make a lighter value under the lines just to get a bit of contrast between the lines and the background. And I'm just laying down what is a very rough start to my shading. Now for years, I would have been happy if this was the final shading in my piece. But today, we're going a lot further than this. Now so far, all the shading is fine, but there are several steps we can take to add a lot of separation and depth to this piece, and that will involve a few layer studies. Now this sounds technical, but it's actually pretty easy. To get us started, this is a lighting study. The goal here is to make a new layer and then shade a really exaggerated version of the lighting. The point is to go too far, so that when you're done, you can dial back the layer opacity until it just looks like good lighting. And basically, that's a lighting study. This next one is called plane separation. The goal here is to paint an area and make it stand out from its neighbors. Here I'm painting the eyes, teeth, and hair of the dragon to sit on its own plane. And this helps get a little more separation to the shading. Now, do you really need to do layer studies? Well, they're very easy to paint and you can do them very quickly. So for a very small cost in time and energy, you can get some really good results. And now it's time to get some detail into our shading. This stage is often called overpainting, and that's just when you paint over stuff that you've already painted. And this is done to create depth and to try out a few changes. I take a moment to quickly add a black halo around the dragon just to punch it off the surface a bit. And since the overpainting is on its own layer, we should try to be bold here and make big choices. This is, after all, the last best time to try out different ideas. Everything after this will be refinement. Now, if I was using paper, this would involve a lot of erasing my pencils and then drawing something new. But in digital art, I can not only save what I've already done and have the option to go back if I want, but I can also repaint areas with shading and color all in one step. I also take a moment to pose the eyes. And this part is easy. You just paint out the old eyes and put your new eyes on their own layer, and then you can move them around together until they look just right. If it wasn't for this overpainting stage, we wouldn't have had a chance to really punch up our shapes and shading. So this is always a really important step for me. And some of this still looks pretty rough, but we're going to go in with a future stage and smooth things out a bit. But for now, we're ready to see this artwork in Previs, just to see how it looks on a body. First, we put the art on a multiply layer mode and resize it until it fits the chest, and then start working on the chest panel in the background. And as I mentioned earlier, this dragon head is just an element in a much larger design. But for this video, I'm just going to surround it with clouds and then add the body in a later stage. This cloud motif is inspired by cloud designs that were printed on Japanese kimonos. And what I want is a contrast between this really sculpted and shaded dragon head next to this very clean and graphic background. I find that if you have really detailed foreground content, you don't want your background to be too crazy. The horns of the dragon would normally keep going quite a long ways, so the clouds give us a chance to sort of tuck the horns away. And the contour of the collarbone will actually help make that bit of cloud look like it's sitting on top of the horns. So now we're using the natural contour of the body to our advantage. At this stage, I start to realize I want a little more separation between the dragon and the background. The danger here is that all the planes sort of mesh into one. To prevent that, I paint a drop shadow around the entire dragon, and then paint an inner glow, which is a highlight around the entire outside edge. And now it's time to add some rough color. Now, figuring out your color on the computer is amazing, and there's nothing like it on paper. I color almost 100% of my artwork on the computer. It's fast and easy, and here I can try out lots of different color schemes and change the saturation and the hue instantly. For me, it's the best way to color an image, and I haven't used anything better. For this color scheme, I just want a cooler hue for the scales, something that feels appropriate for a cloud dragon, and then a warmer tone in the details like the beard and the eyes to contrast with that cooler tone. And here I'm just taking a moment to play with my layers and the contrast, and now we're ready to do a big cleanup. A cleanup is where you go over the entire piece and smooth out any areas that need it. And while I'm doing that, I'm also adding some white highlights. And our slightly darker background color allows us to better see these bright white highlights. And this gives you a chance to design a complete color scheme. And it'll make your digital art look way better when you present your artwork to the client. So don't let me catch you with digital art on a white background. As I'm cleaning things up, I also have to reline a few areas as well. And now things are looking a lot more consistent. But things are also looking a bit flat. So to separate out my dragon head from the background, I do another bit of dark shading around the entire outside edge just to punch it up a bit. Now that we got things cleaned up, it's time to create the artwork for our final presentation. And this involves working with the levels and just making things look nice. Now, there's still a few areas that I'm not happy with and they'll need some more work, but we'll show the client what we got so far and get their feedback and go from there. And we've still got the rest of the dragon's body to look forward to. And that is the first draft of the Cloud Dragon tattoo design. Hey, if you got anything out of this, then help us out by hitting the like button. And subscribe to our channel, we come out with new videos often. And make sure to hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. And if you're serious about creating the best art possible for your tattoos, then go to tattoodesignschool.com and check out the masterclass. This is everything I wish I knew when I was first starting out, and it will push you to create artwork you didn't think was possible. This is the perfect investment in your tattoo career, so check out the masterclass at tattoodesignschool.com. But most importantly, share this video with the person you know who's interested in artwork and tattoos. And we'll see you in the next one.